At Christmas dinner, my father stood up, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Pack your bags. You are a disgrace to this family." My sister laughed. My mother said nothing. I did not argue. I did not cry. I simply stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out into the cold. 48 hours later, a courier delivered an eviction notice to my father's law firm. He had no idea I owned the building where he had built his entire career. But let me take you back to the beginning. Because this story is not just about revenge. It is about 32 years of being invisible in my own family. And the moment I finally made them see me. My name is Rebecca Thornton. I am 34 years old. I grew up in a wealthy suburb outside of Chicago, the kind of neighborhood where everyone drives luxury cars and judges you by your zip code. My father, David Thornton, spent his entire life building a reputation as one of the most respected corporate attorneys in the city. Mitchell and Thornton Associates. That was his kingdom, his legacy, his entire identity. My mother, Patricia, was the kind of woman who smiled through everything. 30 years of marriage, and I never once saw her disagree with my father in public. She hosted dinner parties, managed the household, and spent most of her energy making sure the family looked perfect from the outside. Then there was my sister, Victoria, 2 years older, blonde, beautiful, married at 25 to a cardiac surgeon named Bradley, two children by 30, the perfect daughter living the perfect life in a 5-bedroom house in Lake Forest. Victoria had followed every rule my parents ever set, and in return she received their endless praise, their admiration, their love. And then there was me, the disappointment. I knew I was different from the moment I told my father I wanted to study architecture instead of law. I was 14 years old, sitting in his home office, nervous but excited to share my dream. He looked at me like I had just announced I wanted to join the circus. "Architecture," he repeated. "And what exactly do you plan to do with that?" I tried to explain. I talked about buildings, about design, about creating something lasting. He listened for about 30 seconds before cutting me off. "Rebecca, this family has a legacy. Your grandfather was an attorney. I am an attorney. Your sister is marrying into a respectable family, and you want to draw pictures of buildings." That was the first time I felt it. That sinking feeling of being fundamentally wrong in my father's eyes. It would not be the last. I did not become an architect, but I did not become a lawyer either. Instead, I discovered something else entirely: commercial real estate. I started small, purchasing a duplex in a rough neighborhood when I was 24. Everyone told me I was crazy. My father called it a waste of money. My sister asked if I was having some kind of crisis, but I renovated that duplex. I rented it out. I used the profits to buy another property, then another, then another. By the time I was 34, I owned 7 commercial properties across the Chicago metropolitan area. My portfolio was worth over $40 million. I had a team of attorneys, accountants, and property managers working for me. I had been featured in real estate publications and invited to speak at investment conferences. None of that mattered to my family. To them, I was still the unmarried daughter who lived alone and played with buildings instead of finding a husband and producing grandchildren like Victoria had. If you are still with me, let me know which city you are watching from in the comments. I want to see how far this story is reaching. Now let me tell you about Christmas. The snow had been falling all day, covering everything in that picturesque white that makes the suburbs look like a postcard. I arrived at my parents' house around 4 in the afternoon, carrying a bottle of expensive wine and a genuine sense of hope. I had just closed on a major deal, 18 months of negotiations, and I had finally acquired a historic building in the financial district. I was proud of myself. For the first time in months, I actually felt good. Victoria was already there when I arrived, sitting in the living room with Bradley and their 2 children. She wore a cream-colored dress with pearls, looking like she had stepped out of a catalog. Bradley sat beside her, scrolling through his phone with the bored expression of a man who knew his presence was more about appearance than participation. "Rebecca," Victoria said, barely looking up. "You made it." I did. Alone again, I see. I ignored the comment and went to help my mother in the kitchen. She was arranging appetizers on a silver tray, her movements precise and practiced. "How are you, Mom?" "Busy, dear. You know how your father gets about Christmas dinner. Everything has to be perfect." Everything had to look perfect. That was the actual requirement. Dinner began at 6. The dining room was decorated beautifully. crystal glasses, white candles, a centerpiece of red roses. My father sat at the head of the table, carving the turkey with the same theatrical precision he brought to everything. For a while, things seemed almost normal. We talked about the weather, about Victoria's children, about Bradley's hospital. My father dominated the conversation as usual, telling stories about cases he had won and clients he had impressed. My mother nodded along, adding comments at appropriate intervals. I stayed quiet, waiting for the right moment to share my news. I wanted to tell them about the building I had just acquired. I wanted them to understand that I had accomplished something significant. I never got the chance. My father set down his carving knife and cleared his throat. The room went silent. I recognized that tone, the measured cadence he used when delivering closing arguments in court, the deliberate pause designed to make everyone lean in. "Rebecca," he said, "your mother and I have been discussing something." I felt my stomach tighten. "We are concerned about the image you are projecting." "The image I am projecting? You are 34 years old, unmarried, living in some apartment downtown. Meanwhile, your sister has given us 2 beautiful grandchildren, married a successful surgeon, and actually contributes to this family's reputation." Victoria did not even try to hide her satisfaction. She smirked into her wine glass while Bradley examined his cufflinks. "I have a career," I said quietly. "A successful one. You buy buildings." My father laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "That is not a career, Rebecca. That is gambling with other people's money." "David," my mother murmured, though her protest was barely audible. "No, Patricia. Someone needs to say this." He pushed back from the table slightly, assuming his courtroom stance even while seated. "Every Christmas, every family gathering, I have to explain why one of my daughters chose to throw away her potential on some fantasy about being a real estate mogul. Do you have any idea how that reflects on this family, on my firm?" I stared at my plate, feeling the familiar weight of shame and anger pressing down on my chest. "You know what your problem is?" Victoria finally spoke, her voice dripping with condescension. "You have always thought you were smarter than everyone else, that you did not need to follow the rules the rest of us follow. What rules would those be? The rules of polite society." She raised one perfectly manicured eyebrow. "Finding an appropriate husband, having children, supporting your family's legacy instead of chasing some desperate need to prove yourself." Bradley snorted softly. "I have seen her financials, actually. A colleague of mine invested in one of her projects, lost $50,000. That project is currently valued at 3 times its initial investment," I said through clenched teeth. "Your colleague sold his shares 6 months before the market recovered." Always an excuse. My father shook his head. "Always someone else's fault." And then he said it. "Pack your bags." The words fell into the silence, like stones dropped into still water. "Excuse me? You heard me. Pack your bags. You are embarrassing this family, and I will not tolerate it anymore." He gestured toward the door. "You can come back when you have sorted out your life, found a husband, started acting like a Thornton instead of some vagrant playing at business." Victoria laughed, actually laughed, the sound bright and cruel in the candlelit dining room. My mother examined her napkin with sudden fascination, saying nothing. For one long moment, I sat perfectly still. I thought about all the arguments I could make, the evidence I could present, the decades of dismissal and condescension that had accumulated like scar tissue around my heart. Then I folded my napkin, placed it beside my plate, and stood up. "Okay." My father blinked. "What?" I said. "Okay, you want me to leave?" "I will leave." I walked to the coat closet without another word, retrieved my jacket, collected my purse from the side table in the foyer. "You are actually leaving?" Victoria had followed me, wine glass still in hand. "You heard Dad. I am embarrassing the family." "God, you are so dramatic." She rolled her eyes. "He is trying to help you. We all are. Goodbye, Victoria." I walked out into the December cold without looking back. The drive back to my apartment took 40 minutes. I spent every one of them in complete silence. The streets were empty. Everyone else tucked safely inside their homes, with families who presumably did not issue eviction notices over holiday dinner. Halfway through the drive, I pulled over in a parking lot and sat there for 10 minutes, hands trembling on the steering wheel. The fluorescent lights of a gas station buzzed overhead, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow. I called my best friend, Danielle. "Merry Christmas to you too?" She answered on the third ring. "Should you not be knee-deep in family chaos right now?" I left. You left? Like walked out the door, left? My father told me to pack my bags. Said I was embarrassing the family. My voice cracked on the last word. Oh, honey, where are you? Sitting in my car in a parking lot, like a lunatic. Stay there. I am coming to get you. She found me 45 minutes later, still parked under those fluorescent lights. Danielle climbed into my passenger seat without saying anything. She just reached over and pulled me into a hug while I cried against her shoulder. Tell me everything, she said finally. So I did. The whole miserable dinner. My father's announcement. Victoria's laughter. My mother's silence. Danielle listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. Your sister is a piece of work, she said when I finished. And your father. Honestly, I have always tried to be diplomatic, but he is a textbook narcissist who has spent your entire life trying to mold you into something you are not. He is not wrong about everything. I am 34 and unmarried. I live alone. First of all, you run a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. You have built something from nothing while your sister married a surgeon and decorated her mansion. Danielle squeezed my hand. There is nothing wrong with either path, but only one of them requires actual talent. We sat in silence for a moment. One day, Danielle said quietly, they are going to realize exactly how wrong they were about you, and when that day comes, I hope you make them understand. I laughed despite myself. That seems unlikely. You never know. But here is the thing. Danielle was right. That day was coming, and it was coming much sooner than anyone expected. My apartment was not above a pizza shop, like my father assumed. It was a penthouse unit in a building I owned, one of 7 properties in my portfolio. I did not bother turning on the lights when I got home. I just sat in the darkness of my living room, staring out at the Chicago skyline, thinking about everything I should have said. But what would have been the point? My father had made up his mind about me 20 years ago. Nothing I said would change that. Then something occurred to me. I walked to my home office and opened my laptop. The property management software loaded slowly, giving me time to consider what I was about to do. I navigated to a specific folder, a specific document. Lease agreement, Mitchell and Thornton Associates, Madison Plaza. My father did not know. None of them knew. 2 years ago, I had acquired Madison Plaza through my holding company, a historic building in the heart of the financial district. Premium office space. Prestigious address. The previous owner had been eager to sell quickly due to health issues, and I had offered cash above asking price for an expedited closing. Mitchell and Thornton Associates had occupied the 7th and 8th floors of Madison Plaza for 16 years. My father's firm, his kingdom, his legacy. When I purchased the building, I had no intention of using that information. The transaction was handled through multiple layers of corporate entities specifically designed to maintain anonymity. My attorneys had structured it carefully. The building was an investment, not a weapon. Until tonight, I scrolled through the lease agreement, rereading the termination clause my attorneys had reviewed during a routine audit 6 months earlier. Either party could terminate with 60 days written notice provided certain conditions were met. Failure to maintain the property in accordance with building standards. Violation of noise ordinances. Conducting business in a manner inconsistent with the professional character of the building. That last clause was particularly interesting. I drafted an email to my attorney, Jennifer Walsh, requested a meeting first thing Monday morning, flagged it as urgent. Then I closed my laptop and went to bed. If you are feeling as shocked as my family was about to be, hit that like button. It helps more people find this story. Monday arrived with a gray, sleeting rain that made the whole city feel trapped under wet concrete. I met Jennifer at her office at 7:30, coffee in hand. Tell me this is not emotional, she said after I explained what I wanted. It is strategic. Natalie, she set down her pen. I have known you for 5 years. You have never acted on impulse. So when you tell me you want to terminate the lease of a firm run by your father 3 days after Christmas, I have questions. Fair enough. I settled back in my chair. Yes, there is a personal element. But here is the business case. That building has 3 other interested parties who want those exact floors. A tech company relocating from San Francisco, a financial services firm expanding operations, an architecture studio looking for a flagship location. Any of them would pay 23% more than the current rate. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. 23%? The market has shifted significantly since that lease was signed. My father's firm is paying below market rate by a considerable margin. She studied me for a long moment. And the cause for termination? I pulled a folder from my bag. I have documented complaints from other tenants about noise from the seventh floor. The firm conducts mock trials after hours, raised voices, dramatic performances. There are also documented instances of their staff propping open stairwell doors, which violates fire code. Jennifer flipped through the pages. Her expression shifted from skeptical to impressed. This is thorough. I did not get where I am by being sloppy. All right, she set down the folder. I can have the termination notice prepared by this afternoon. Courier delivery with signature confirmation. 9 o'clock delivery. I want it waiting when they arrive. The courier delivered the envelope at 9:02 Monday morning. By 9:15, it had reached my father's executive assistant. By 9:47, my phone was ringing. I let it go to voicemail. Rebecca, this is your father. There has been some kind of mistake with our building lease. Some company is claiming they own Madison Plaza and they are terminating our tenancy. I need you to call me back immediately. He called 3 more times that morning. I ignored each call. At 12:34, I received a text from Victoria. What the hell did you do? I did not respond. At 2:15, my mother left a voicemail. Rebecca, sweetheart, please call us. Your father is very upset. This is his entire career. Please just call. I listened to the message twice. The fear in her voice was real. For the first time in my life, something I had done actually mattered to my family. At 6 o'clock that evening, I finally called my father back. Rebecca. His voice was controlled, the courtroom calm he used when facing hostile witnesses. I assume you are aware of the situation. I am. Then you understand this needs to be resolved immediately. Some company called Ashford Holdings has made a serious error. There is no error. Silence. What do you mean? I mean, I own Madison Plaza. Ashford Holdings is my company, has been for 2 years. More silence. That is not possible. You do not have the resources to purchase a building of that size. I have the resources to purchase 4 buildings of that size. My portfolio is valued at approximately $47 million. I heard him processing, recalculating, adjusting his strategy. Rebecca, if this is some kind of revenge because of Christmas, it is not revenge, it is business. Your firm is paying below market rate for premium office space. I have multiple offers from tenants willing to pay significantly more. From a pure investment perspective, terminating your lease is the correct decision. You would destroy my career over money? You told me to pack my bags because I was embarrassing your family. I let that hang in the air. You spent most of my life telling me I was worthless, that my career was a joke. 3 days ago, you publicly humiliated me on Christmas. I was trying to motivate you. No, you were trying to control me. Rebecca, be reasonable. This is my firm, my legacy. You cannot just take that away. I am not taking anything away. Your firm can operate from a different location. There are plenty of office buildings in this city, just not this one. The address matters. Our clients expect prestige. Moving would destroy everything I built. Then perhaps you should have been more careful about which daughter you decided to publicly disown. He was quiet for a long time. What do you want? An apology? Money? I want you to understand something. I looked out my window at the city lights. I have been building this success since I was 22 years old. Every property I purchased, every renovation I managed, every negotiation I completed brought me here. I did it without your help, without your support, without a single word of encouragement. We did not know. You did not want to know. I took a breath. The termination stands. You have 60 days to find new office space. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up before he could respond. The next 2 weeks were illuminating. Victoria called to scream at me about destroying the family. Bradley left a condescending voicemail about legal liability. My mother sent texts asking if we could please talk like adults. I responded to none of them. On January 15th, my father's firm announced they would be relocating to a building on the outskirts of the financial district. Less prestigious, but functional. I signed a lease with the tech company 3 days later, 23% increase in rental income. On January 20th, I received a letter from my father, handwritten on his firm's letterhead. Rebecca, your mother and I would like to invite you to dinner, not at the house, somewhere neutral. I have spent the past month doing something I should have done years ago, paying attention to what you have actually accomplished. Your attorney speaks highly of you. Your portfolio is more substantial than I realized. I am not going to pretend I understand everything that happened. I am not going to say I was right at Christmas, but I would like the opportunity to listen, to understand who my daughter became while I was not paying attention. Your father. I read the letter 3 times. We met at a restaurant downtown. My father looked older than I remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper. My mother sat beside him, twisting her napkin nervously. Thank you for coming, my father said. Thank you for the letter. We ordered drinks, made small talk, danced around everything until my father finally spoke plainly. I was wrong. I nearly dropped my fork. I was wrong about you, about your career, about everything. He met my eyes directly. I spent so many years with a specific idea of what success looked like that I could not see anything else. My mother reached across the table. We are not asking you to forgive us overnight. We know that is not realistic, but we are hoping you will give us a chance to do better. I looked at my parents, 2 people who had failed me for 3 decades. 2 people who were only here because I had demonstrated my value in terms they could not ignore. Was that enough? I did not know, but I was tired of being angry. Okay, I said finally, we can try. 6 months later, my father's firm had settled into their new location, smaller offices, less prestigious address, but they retained most of their clients. Victoria eventually apologized. It took 3 separate conversations and considerable pressure from our parents. The relationship remained strained, but she stopped treating me like a cautionary tale. And my father and I began meeting for coffee once a month. Awkward at first. Stilted attempts at connection, but gradually something began to change. I do not know if I will ever fully understand why you chose this path, he told me one afternoon. It is so different from everything I know. Do you need to fully understand it? He considered the question. No, I suppose I just need to accept that it is yours. The morning I closed on my 8th property, I stood on the roof of Madison Plaza and looked out at the city spread below me. Somewhere in those streets was the new office of Mitchell and Thornton Associates. Somewhere else was the house where I grew up, where I was told so many times I would never be enough. I was enough. I had always been enough. It just took my family 30 years and an eviction notice to realize it. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Congratulations on the new building. Your mother wants to know if you are free for Sunday dinner. I typed back. I will be there. Some victories are measured in dollars. Others are measured in dinner invitations. I had finally earned both. If you made it this far, you are amazing. Please subscribe if you have not already. Comment your favorite part of this story, and of course, like the video. It means more than you know.